Hello, good morning friends. Once again, I warmly welcome you to my class of 10th Standard English Medium. And today we are going to discuss the second chapter of our textbook Footprints with Our Feet. Okay, as you can see on the board, the title of the second chapter is The Thief's Story. Basically, it's a short story written by Ruskin Bond. Okay. So before we actually start discussing the story, I would like to give you an introduction of the writer Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond was an Anglo-Indian writer. Anglo-Indian stands for a person whose one of the parents were from England and one of the parents were from India. Okay, so that way we can consider that Ruskin Bond was an Anglo-Indian writer. Okay, so pre-independence area, he acquired a great name and fame as being one of the greatest short story writer of English language, and he has produced so many short stories. In fact, he was known to be the master of writing short stories while having the Indian background in his stories. Despite being an Anglo-Indian writer, he had an immense love towards India, our country, and that was the reason why even after his parents' death, when he was advised to stay in England, okay, he still chose to stay in India. In fact, he tried to settle in England for about 4 or 5 years, but somehow he could not manage, and then he returned to India and stayed in the different cities like Dehradun, Darjeeling, and in Junagadh also, and in Mussoorie also. And in that way, he developed an immense faith, trust, and kind of deep love towards India and Indian surroundings. So basically, whichever stories that we read about of Ruskin Bond, we find that there is a background of the common culture of India, right? So this particular story, a thief's story, also represents the same kind of theme. Okay. Now let us discuss about the story. As far as the story is concerned, it's a short story, having only 2 characters. In the entire story, there are only 2 characters, as you can see on board. Okay, one of the characters, his name is Anil, who is a 25-year-old writer. He's basically a struggling writer. He lives alone in a rented room, rented accommodation. Okay, and he writes short articles or short stories in different magazines, and that's how he tries to make his living. Okay, and another character is actually a thief. Okay, he was merely a 15-year-old boy. Despite being only a 15-year teenage boy, he acquired a certain level of mastery over stealing and robbing and doing this kind of things rather than doing job and try to make a living by doing the hard work. He does not like to do so. So basically, he is a thief. In the story, he tells his name to Anil as Hari, but that is not his actual name. He keeps on changing his name because this is what one of the characteristics of all the thieves in the world. They do not keep their original name. And even if they have the original name, they would not like to tell it to anyone. Okay, so in order to escape from the police, in order to escape from the judiciary and authority, he keeps on changing the name every month. And he does not even have a kind of one particular place to stay. He's not settled at one particular place, I mean. Okay, so over here, he has a plan to rob somebody. Okay, so he finds out that Anil is a kind of a lonely person. He is a young person. He lives alone, okay, in a city area, and he happens to meet him at a wrestling match. When a wrestling match was going on, okay, he tried to initiate a kind of friendship towards Anil by initiating a talk with him. So both these persons started talking a bit about wrestling match. Okay, and about the different types of wrestlers and what wrestling is all about. Now, although this boy, the thief, was not so much interested in wrestling, but he just dragged on the conversation with Anil just in order to make a friendship with him. Okay, even Anil was also not so much interested in talking about wrestling, but he was such a polite person. He was very like a nice person. He tried to be nice and friendly towards this boy. He did not want to, break anybody's heart. So he kept on talking with him. When it was a time for them to get separated, this boy literally made a request to Anil that he was actually looking for work, and he requested Anil whether he would be able to provide him with some work with a little bit of payment or not. Anil readily agreed, okay, to keep him at his accommodation, but he clearly told him that he was not in a position to pay him any salary or anything like that. Okay. Still, the thief was agreed because he had a kind of desire that after some time, whenever he will get a chance, he will just steal. He would rob Anil and then go away from that place. He did not have kind of any planning of staying with Anil for a very long period of time. So he also agreed. Anil agreed to keep him at his home upon the condition that he should be able to cook for both the people. Okay, the thief lied to him that he knew how to cook, but basically he did not know how to cook. He tried on the same day, to cook dinner for both of them, but unfortunately the things went wrong, and his cooking was very, very bad. It was such a bad cooking that Anil had to feed whatever that this boy cooked to the stray dogs at that night. So Anil instantly realized that this boy was not good at anything. He did not know how to cook. He could not provide any kind of decent work to him. He did not even know how to make tea. Okay, so he would just give him casual sort of work to run errands, like in case if he had to, if he wanted to get anything from the market, he would just send him by giving him some money, and the boy would manage that particular thing for Anil. Yeah, okay, and he would return home after some time. So basically, both these people had a good mutual understanding to stay with each other. Okay, and the things went all right for about 1 month. And there was no complaint from either side. Okay, and eventually, during this 1 month, this boy developed a habit of making at least 1 rupee per day for whatever amount of money that was given to him by Anil. He would just keep 1 rupee for him and return the rest of the money to Anil. Anil knew this thing, but he did not say anything to this. He did not mind it, basically. Okay, he knew it very well, but still, as long as he was not giving any salary to this boy, he did not mind it. So this way, 1 month had passed. After a month, there was a day. One day, Anil came home with lots of money in his hand. He had a bundle of notes in his hand, and he had a bundle of 50 rupees notes that would sum up to 600 rupees overall. Okay, now, keeping in our mind that the story has a background of olden times, 600 rupees was a considerable amount of money. Okay, so obviously Anil was showing a great bit of trust towards this boy. So he showed that money, and he told him that he was able to sell his book to one of the publishers, and that's how he earned that much of money. Okay, so obviously, a greed erupted into the boy's mind, and he instantly made a decision that on that night only he would steal that money and run away from his house forever. Okay, with that intention in his mind, he was waiting for the night to fall. So when he saw that Anil was sleeping on his mattress, okay, he tucked that bundle of notes underneath the mattress where he was sleeping. So he was waiting for the time when Anil was fast asleep. So after some time when he went to sleep, this boy, the thief, went inside where Anil was sleeping, and in a very careful manner, he was able to drag that bundle of money from under the mattress. And he already had a plan to run away immediately after that. So he did so, and he also knew that he would be able to catch Lucknow Express from the railway station. Okay, the Lucknow Express from the railway station had a 10:30 p.m. time to leave the platform. So he immediately went there, and when he reached the platform, the train was just about leaving actually. It was just about leaving the platform, and it was fast picking the speed. So he was ready to board on the train. He was ready to board on the moving train. But immediately after reaching to the platform, he suddenly felt very unusual in his heart. A kind of feeling that he could not describe to anyone. In a way, we can say that his conscience woke up, and he did not find it right to board on the train and leave that place forever. Okay, he knew it very well. He had stolen so many people so far, and he knew the expressions of different people after when they were realized that they were being robbed by any particular thief. Okay, he knew it well that a rich people would show anger on their faces. A greedy person would show a fear on their faces. A poor people would show the feeling of acceptance in their heart. But when he started thinking about Anil's face, okay, he knew it very well that it would have a sadness, the feeling of sadness on his face. Okay, the feeling of sadness, not because the money was stolen, but because the trust was broken. So that particular imagination or that scene kept on coming in his mind over and over. And with that feeling, he was unable to board on the train. He stayed on the platform. The train went off. Okay, and he came out of the railway station. He went to a big ground and sat on a bench for some time. It was a cold winter night of the month of November. So there was a cold wind blowing from the opposite direction. And after some time, it started raining also. So that increased his discomfort more and more. Okay, and he left that place and he took shelter underneath a clock tower and sat there for a long time. And he could not make any decision what to do next. It was the middle of the night, and he suddenly decided to went back to where he was living, to Anil. Okay, so he went back. When he went back, he saw that Anil was still sleeping. He was fast asleep in the same position as he had left before. So, without making him realize, he again put that bundle out of his pocket and slid it under the mattress. At that time, he realized that due to rain, the bundle of notes was damp. It was wet, but still, that was something he thought that he had to do, because he returned, okay, without having any further intention of stealing. Okay, he returned home and he just wanted to keep that bundle where it was earlier. Okay, even though he did not mind that it was still wet, and he probably Anil would find out in the morning that somebody had taken the money out and then put it back. So in the morning, the same thing happened. Okay, Anil woke up before this boy, and when this boy woke up, Anil had already made tea for both of them. So he served tea to this boy, and he handed him a 50 rupee note. Okay, and told him that from that day onwards, he would pay him the salary on regular basis every month. The boy realized that the 50 rupee note was still wet from the last night's rain. So he instantly realized that Anil knew it very well, that the money was stolen by him, and that he himself had gone back to the house and put the money back. Okay, but still he did not say a word of scolding to this boy, and he immediately accepted him back to his house, and he still kept his trust on this boy. Okay, and assured him that for whatever work that he was doing, he would pay him back. So the boy was obviously very glad, and this time around he smiled towards Anil, and he remembered that Anil was such a kind and a nice boy, a kind of a person who would put a lot of trust on anyone, and he was a kind of person with whom, if he had stayed, he would progress a lot in his life, because during that 1 month's time he had learned so many things from Anil. Okay, he was, for example, he was readily teaching him how to write sentences. He was teaching him the languages. He was teaching him the basic calculation and arithmetic, etc. So these are the things, and the boy, when he realized that when he grew up, okay, he would be in a better stage of life to work as a kind of a successful person. Okay, so with this happy note, the story comes to an end. It has a happy ending, and it was such a nice story. I hope that you had understood the story very well. And in case if you have any doubts, you can contact me back through the school contact number, or you might have my number as well. Okay. In the due course of time, I will provide you with the notes related to this story also. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.